Our next speaker is the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Information Warfare, known as N2N6. He is a naval aviator by training. He also served in senior command positions on both CVN-69 and CVN-73 aircraft carriers. Please welcome Vice Admiral Karl Thomas.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for your time and attention. I'm here on behalf of our Chief of Naval Operations, Acting Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Jim Kilby, who's asked me to share a few thoughts with you. I'm glad I was able to follow General Gutlein, certainly an extremely important domain for the Navy, and we work very closely with that team, and we can't maneuver without that team, so glad to listen to his remarks. I'll certainly provide probably 5 minutes of opening thoughts. We'll have a little dialogue, and then with some time left at the end, get into some questions as well. You know, America is a maritime nation. We've always been a maritime nation. It's our way of life. We depend on the freedom of the seas. And as America's away team, we combine power and presence. We bring the fight to our adversaries, and we sustain combat operations from the high seas. We deploy the world's most sophisticated weapon systems operated by our highly skilled personnel, and we're ready to fight and win our nation's wars 24/7, 365. Our adversaries face an undeniable reality that a fight against the U.S. joint force would be unwinnable and costly. Every day, the Navy is strategically positioned around the globe to provide a rapid response to emerging crisis. Our adversaries experienced that this weekend as the Houthi regime is feeling the Truman Carrier Strike Group's wrath. After defending maritime shipping in the Red Sea and defeating more than 400 drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles to ensure and enforce the rules-based international order, the Truman Carrier Strike Group went on the offensive and carried out dozens of offensive strikes from sovereign U.S. territory, our aircraft carriers, our cruisers, and our destroyers against Houthi aggressors in Yemen. They're able to do this on short order because they're well-trained and they operate forward around the globe every day. And every day in the expansive Western Pacific against our pacing challenge, the Chinese Communist Party. The Navy Marine Corps team enhancing regional interoperability by working with our allies and partners, we demonstrate peace through strength with our military-to-military exercises. And we counter the influence of the Communist Chinese Party, North Korea, and Russia by sailing anywhere international law allows, and by operating side by side our regional allies, Japan, Australia, South Korea, the Philippines, and Thailand, but also European nations and Canada, who routinely operate with us in those globally important waters. The Navy's ballistic missile submarines stand the watch every day, providing a powerful and ever-present nuclear deterrence. And our apex killers, our fast attack submarines, are patrolling the deep, undetected, and in the minds of the adversary, everywhere, yet nowhere to be found. I'll reemphasize that, nowhere to be found. If you watched or read Admiral Kilby's opening remarks at his most recent SASC testimony to the Readiness Subcommittee, you'll know that the readiness is important, paramount in what we're working on every day, and urgency matters. The current threats aren't going to wait for new platforms to be delivered, which therefore generate more operational availability from our existing ships, submarines, and aircraft, and they need to be combat surge ready. We must continue to enhance our ability to sense and make sense of the environment from the seabed to space, and we must deliver decision advantage for our warfighting leaders. As my role as the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Information Warfare and the Director of Naval Intelligence, it's this decision advantage that has my undivided attention right now. It's through this lens that we're prioritizing our maritime operations centers, improving our ability to generate fires at range, and increasing our fleet commanders' ability to sense and make sense of their battle space against our peer adversary. We live in the information age, and our ability to aggregate, parse, and rapidly synthesize information is our advantage. We must do it at machine speed, at least machine-aided speed, to assist in applying human decision-making across an increasingly complex battle space. The goal is to outthink and therefore outmaneuver the adversary. Decision superiority is predicated on our ability to have the right information delivered to the right person and the right shooter at the right classification level at the right time. And this information must support all 7 joint warfighting functions. Command and control, information management, intelligence. These 3 joint warfighting functions fused together provide us that decision advantage. It's easily said, but there are many, many crucial details behind an ability to do this, especially at the expansive ranges of the Pacific and against a thinking and a capable peer adversary. We won't outbuild the competition alone. They're the world's manufacturing juggernaut, but we're the world's innovation juggernaut, and we need to capitalize on our ability to outthink and outmaneuver across many domains simultaneously. We have something that they don't, our sailors and their warrior ethos, who we trust and count on every day to deliver at sea. Trust, mission command, culture. These are yet another asymmetric advantage that gives me great confidence that should deterrence fail, that we will prevail. Now more than ever, we need the flexibility to find, to experiment, and field at scale capabilities that we need to fight and win our nation's wars. That's robotics, autonomous systems, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and 3D printing. Our Navy's laying the keel for the hybrid fleet through various efforts to build and integrate uncrewed systems and to invest in artificial intelligence applications. That's why I'm very pleased to see the makeup of the Defense Disruptors Panel. Those are teammates that are on the leading edge of these technologies. And with that, we've got plenty of time for questions, and then, time permitting, we'll open up to the audience.
Admiral, good to see you again. You talked a little bit about the advanced technologies that the Navy's looking at, robotics, AI, and things like that. We heard earlier in the day from both the Air Force and Army that they're increasingly going to exercise campaigns to try out this emergent technology in the hands of in your case, in the hands of the sailors and perhaps Marines. Are you doing those types of campaign exercise experiments to shake out what you're fielding, and how well publicized are they?
Yeah, we're absolutely involved in many of those same exercises. I think everybody in this audience is very familiar with the Project Convergence series led by the Army, where we bring the joint force together to work on those kill chains, kill webs, to be able to move the information around. So that's a piece of what we're doing. Right now we're doing a lot of experimentation in the non-traditional sea denial side of the world. So we've been watching in the Black Sea and learning what the Ukrainian Navy has done to the Russian Navy. There are places in this world that have contested littoral environments, and those kind of capabilities can be quite useful. So we know that's something in the Navy that we can buy and scale at speed. And we're working on the autonomy aspect of that. We're working on how you command and control that, and running experiments to learn quickly. And certainly in the Indo-PACOM AOR, there's many experiments that we do on a regular basis. And I think we've really embraced the idea that you got to buy a little, learn a lot, iterate, and then move to the very next stage.
Admiral, leveraging off of that, you've been experimenting, you've been doing this, the Navy's got a number of task forces in Bahrain and other places that have been doing piece parts of this on autonomous systems. From everything that you're seeing and what you're focused on, what are the other disruptive technologies? Specifically, what kinds of things show the most promise with the most upside opportunity from your perspective?
I think the previous speaker obviously talked about the importance of space, talked about how we absolutely rely on it from a timing and a precision perspective. The other guy does too. We absolutely rely on it from a communication. You know, we're a disconnected service where everything that we communicate has to go off the ship, and we can do UHF in near location, but in general we have to look at extended range communications, often through space. The other guy, when they're thinking about doing long range weapons, those weapons that are flying long ranges need updates. We're looking at longer range weapons. So this battle space that when I was a young ensign was pretty small and organic has become vast, and the Pacific is huge. And so all of those provide attack surfaces, provide opportunity. And so I think in the world of counter C5 SRT, that's another area that you could see disruption. We're going against a peer adversary. So the peer adversary is not going to make it easy for us. He's going to try to deceive our understanding of the battle space. We're going to do the same thing to him. So decoys and deception is another big part where this is a ripe area.
Thank you, Admiral. As we talk about these various exercises, I'm wondering if you can explain the differences in how the Navy's architecture approach in Project Overmatch or packetizing disparate data is different from what the Army's doing in Project Convergence and what the Air Force is doing in ABMS, and how they all essentially will eventually tie together.
Yeah, so Project Overmatch, something our Naval Warfare Systems Command, NAVWAR, rolled out, and the Navy, I resource it. It's really about the agility of moving information around the battle space. Obviously, we need to be interoperable as a joint force, so when we do exercises like Project Convergence, we're right there working with both the Air Force, the Marines, and the Space Force, and the Army. Their exercise, but it really is a joint exercise, and it's about how do we share information rapidly through many different paths. The second part of Project Overmatch, which is really important, it's about software. It's about delivering battle management aids. It's about taking advantage of software and developing it in a way that's rapid and iterative, because the battle space of the future, just like we're seeing in Ukraine, it's a move, counter-move scenario. Things change, the adversary figures out what's happening and adjusts. And we need to be able to adjust rapidly. We've learned a lot of lessons in the Red Sea in how to better analyze engagements, adjust our weapon systems, update them, and prepare for the next salvo. That same learning has to happen. Not only, we've gone from months down to days, we now got to get down to hours. And so that really means software and adjusting over the air. And that's the future fight, because the other guy, a peer competitor, is going to be able to change, and you got to be able to change and counter move with them.
You mentioned that the Pacific is big, which obviously it is, but
we sometimes forget about that. We look at PowerPoint charts and we think it's a really small ocean. It's huge.
It's huge. We've got a sort of a new collection of international allies, partners that are there with a different warfighting challenge, perhaps. Can you summarize the international partnership, what's going on, how you're going to align common operating pictures and that sort of thing to maximize the extended lethality of a joint allied force?
Yeah, so I'm actually Friday getting on a plane to head to Canberra, Australia, for what we call Oscan Zucas. And so Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the UK, and we're going to talk about interoperability. That's pretty easy at the 5I level. I lived in Japan for 4 of the last 7 years. I was 7th Fleet Commander, worked side by side, Kaijo Jeitai, the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force. We were interoperable to a point. We shared briefings. We met weekly. We talked and exercised together. But from a common operating picture, there's different levels of common operating picture, and there's different levels of intelligence, and there's protection of networks and cybersecurity. We have work to do in this space, and it's really important work. The Japanese live in the WES. They're forward and they have capacity. Our ability to share and to be able to work as one team, pretty proud of the work that we did. I was out there with my good battle buddy, General Chip Bierman, who was the 3MEF commander, and he worked side by side with the Japanese Ground Self-Defense Force while I was working with the Navy and the Air Force. We exchanged our staffs. But when it comes down to true interoperability and the ability to get the ones and zeros from the intelligence sensing gathering machine synthesized and then sent to the shooter, there's a lot in that. It's like, kind of reminds me of my young days of tracing a molecule through a boiler. You got to be able to connect that dot throughout. And when we're talking about the importance of targeting and long-range fires and the need to update missiles that may, quite frankly, be in the air for an hour or two, if you're talking about a maritime strike Tomahawk, things change, and so you have to have that surveillance, the persistence targeting, the target quality data, and then you got to get it to the shooter. And you may have to update the weapon in flight. Doing that, and we know that our adversaries that are our allies that are operating out there are looking at the same weapons that we are, SM-6s, maritime strike tomahawks. So that interoperability becomes even that much more important.
Certainly the last commander of Indo-PACOM, Admiral Aquilino, was very vocal about the lack of advance warning on what China was doing. I suspect Admiral Paparo has the same concerns. Are we any better? Are we getting closer to having better advanced insight and warning into what China is doing, or is that still going to be just an opaque box?
Probably can't talk a lot about some of the details, but I would tell you that every intelligence agency in the United States is foresighted on understanding what their capabilities are, what the timing and the thinking is, and we have a lot of capabilities in this regard. And Admiral Paparo is at the leading edge of that understanding and has access to all of it. And so it is something that, this is, for us, it's an away fight. It's on the other side of the Pacific. It has a disparity in timing because it's 80 miles for one guy and it's thousands of miles for the other team. And so you got to be present to play, and you got to be forward to fight, and you got to be in place because it's a long time to get across that big pond. And so it is a disparity in time and being able to react. We also desire to deter, and that's job number one, is deterrence. And so that's why we operate side by side. That's why we operate right up in the WES, right up in their face, sailing where international law allows, to show that we're not going to back down, we're not going to cede battle space. And every day that we're operating together, every day it's not just the United States, it's all those other countries. That's the best sign of deterrence that you can have. And so hopefully we'll work through this, and it'll continue to be an ever-changing effort, but time is not on our side from a geography's perspective.
Looking at the CNO's 2024 navigation plan and the role of maritime operations centers, where is N2, N6's role in execution of that plan?
Yeah, so I got assigned the single accountable officer in the way we deal with big, heady problems in the United States Navy. And so I'm responsible for delivering the Maritime Operations Center to the fleet leaders. I've got a team that I've got working for me, not only the Nav I-4 team, who's the MOC type commander, but also the Nav War team and my team and the fleets coming together to try to work on the architecture. What's the right architecture to put in our Maritime Operations Centers so that we are interoperable? How do we cyber harden them? How do we bring all that disparate data and information to fuse it in the Maritime Operations Center? How do we orchestrate long-range fires? How do we work with our joint partners so that the Maritime Operations Center can be that place where we can sense the battle space, make sense of it, and then make those, put those orders together that are necessary to orchestrate the joint force and create opportunities, create fires at range. Yeah,
Start
certainly.
opening it up to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Admiral, hi, I'm Harlan Ullman with a commissioner on the Congressional Commission on the Future Navy. And I have two questions that I'd like your personal view on. First, the Russians have taken a hell of a beating in Ukraine. What's the general estimate for how long you think that they can reconstitute a serious conventional threat to Europe in rather general terms? And second, in Taiwan, if the Chinese were to mount an amphibious forcible entry invasion to invade and to occupy Taiwan, what do we think that would take in terms of numbers? You will know that Normandy was 200,000, Okinawa was 400,000. And why have the Chinese in Taiwan been very reluctant to take on some of the technologies that would really make any kind of an offensive like that very difficult to
No, you're going right for the throat on these questions here.
We're not foolish on the commission, sir.
Russia. Yeah, I think that nobody in this audience, I think you'd agree with me, thought 3 years later we'd be sitting where we are. It says something about the changing character of warfare and what we've seen happen with ubiquitous, unmanned, attritable kind of systems. That's a piece of it. Your question was, how long would it take for them to reconstitute? I think what we're seeing happen right now is the fact that they're able to continue to fund, and they have a larger population, obviously, so that's been part of the inequity in the fight. And they certainly have resources that they've been able to sell to other folks to continue to resource the war. I'm hopeful that we'll get to a point, the administration's clearly working on trying to get this settled. As far as rebuilding, I think that they've probably put a hurt on themselves for a while. I don't know, I would not try to sit up here and give you a date or a time frame, but they certainly have expended a lot of their treasure and their people, and it'll be, probably some time. I just don't know. I wouldn't want to try to put a date on that. As for the Taiwan question and what it would actually take, there's intelligence estimates of what it would take. I like, when asked this question, to ask people, when's the last time there was an amphibious invasion? And that last time was Incheon. That was well before the world of precision weapons. That was well before exquisite intelligence and overhead systems. And so it would take a lot. And it would take, and I think everybody recognizes that. And so there's different ways to prepare for that potentiality. And I think that you can look across into the Black Sea again to see what things might be effective. And you made the comment that you didn't think they were willing to take it on. I'll just stop short of saying I think they are paying attention, and we'll just leave it at that.
Admiral Thomas, thank you. I'm Matt Clunder, Elstree Harris, using Jim's mic. Really understood the decision advantage theme. It resonates with all of us. As you take information warfare, the hybrid fleet you talked about, and you touched on it, can you elaborate a little more about the C2 of that kind of evolution? And oh, by the way, my dad was at Incheon, so thank you for the note.
Gucci, thanks for the question. So I think everybody recognizes that the location that we're most focused on is close enough to the adversary's coastline that we can expect to have challenges with communications, that we'll have challenges with navigation and timing. We see this in the Black Sea, and we see what Russia has done to make it very difficult to deliver some of these non-traditional capabilities. And so understanding that and figuring out how to work through that is going to be really important. Obviously, these capabilities can operate in different domains, and there's different things for different places, and I won't go into great depth of the eaches, but being able to get the capability to the fight, being able to have if you're thinking of swarms of things, being able to have them work in a most efficient manner. There's a lot to learn in this and a lot to unpack, and then you got to be able to see to it. And so we're working through exercises to understand how to make things talk to one another, how to best be most efficient, and then taking the lessons that we've seen in the Black Sea and applying that to our exercises and our efforts. Scratch the itch. All right. Please.
Hi, Admiral. Great to see you. Trent Reasons with EY Parthenon, in the spirit of its baseball season. So I'm not going to throw you the high inside heat of our friend on the commission, but with respect to geopolitical tensions and the dynamics that have been playing out in real time in the last 8 to 12 weeks, you mentioned engagement on targets in your prepared remarks and coordination and work with allies. Are you seeing a noticeable difference in ally engagement, whether information sharing or other things that you can talk about high level, if there's a noticeable change that's occurred in that dynamic, sir? Thank you.
Yeah, as one of my jobs as a Director of Navy Intel, a lot of the information sharing agreements come out of my office and with the help of the Office of Navy Intelligence. And so I have not seen any noticeable changes. I think our relationships with our allies and partners are healthy. I think we all recognize we need to work together. So we continue to engage all of those countries. Like I said, I'm heading to Australia on Friday. We'll have a very fruitful and high-level dialogue about what we need to do as a team. So I think that there's folks that we've been working with for many, many years that understand the importance of that teamwork, And I've only seen it get, continue to be strong, if that helps you.
Sir, hey, Tony Capaccio with Bloomberg. Two quick questions on the Houthis and Iran. What's your assessment of to the extent to which Iran calls the shots, so to speak, from a command standpoint with the Houthis, or are the Houthis, when they fire, or they have been firing, are they pretty much, it's a unilateral doing it on their own with less direction from Iran than one might think?
Yeah, I don't know that I'm willing to go into the great detail of that. I think that the commander-in-chief recently talked about, pretty much laid a pretty good threat out there to Iran that said, hey, need to knock it off. And that we've seen after the strikes this last weekend that the Houthis have continued to launch missiles and one-way attack vehicles, not to great effect. So I think that we'll see a few evolutions here, and we'll see if we can get them to back down. How much Iran is calling the shots today, or not, or telling them not to, not 100% sure yet on where that is. I think too early to tell right now in the current environment. Clearly, we had gotten to a little bit of a steady state. Took a pretty good offensive swipe at them this last weekend, and then we'll see how far they want to go.
One quick question, follow-up. Are the Houthis getting resupply from Iran or Russia, or is what the United States hitting basically indigenously made drones and rockets and ballistic missiles?
I think there's a little bit of both. I think intelligence would say that some of it's being supplied from Iran. Certainly, it's being assembled in Yemen. We certainly are looking for the supply chain and trying to make sure we understand it. Yep.
He's a buzzkiller, sir. Anytime you let Capaccio, he starts usually way at the back, and by the end of the day, he ends up in the front. He's uncontainable. So I know we're running out of time. Last couple questions. If there's nothing else from the audience, do you have one, Sam? Oh, Sam was just giving me the finger. All right, Sam, thank you. Two questions.
Yes, sir.
Number one, if you had $1 more, 1 more hour, where would you spend it? And number two, given the existential importance of the fight that the Navy's going to be having, in other words, with respect to the 2027, 2035 China fight, what's the one scenario that really keeps you up at night?
Yeah, so if I had $1 extra, I'm kind of along with General Gutlein, and in my world it would be counter C-5 ISRT, so we can maneuver. It's a very contested battle space, and we got to be able to get to the fight, and that's the entire joint force needs to get to the fight, and that's through counter C-5 ISRT. Maybe weapons, that'd be like a close second, where I'd put my second dollar.
I expected shipbuilding. I'm sorry, I was way wrong on that. I'm sorry, sir.
Well, I think we fund shipbuilding, and it takes a lot of our budget, and we are a Navy, and we need ships.
Yes, sir.
I think you will see that we're thinking differently about how do we work in the unmanned hybrid fleet, and how do you best use a hybrid fleet. I've got certainly my ideas on what we need to do there.
Yes, sir.
As far as what keeps me up at night, I do sleep pretty well because I got sailors, 7th Fleet, standing the watch for us, but
Yes,
I certainly feel tremendous responsibility to bring them capability rapidly. Yes, and we haven't always been fast in the Navy, and we need to get faster and get them more capability more quickly.
And then any last thoughts on the disruptor panel we're going to have this afternoon? What would your expectations, who's obviously on it, what would your expectations be of them? What would your message be to them, and what would you expect from them?
Yeah, I think in the disruptor world, in the asymmetric world, we sometimes forget that unmanned should really be, for the most dirty, dangerous, dull missions, and it's got to be at a price point that makes it reasonable. And so, we in the Navy recognize that non-traditional sea denial is a place we can go rapidly and scale quickly to get capability. And then there's our normal fleet that does the global sea commons that, manned can kind of sail across the entire world. And there's this middle ground that we have that I think is ripe for opportunity. And that would be unmanned or maybe optionally manned that has payloads that are changeable, and it doesn't cost too much, but it could be in far as fires, it could be contested logistics. It could have a role in counter C5SRT or terminal defense. I think there's a ripe opportunity for that space. Something smaller, ocean-going clearly. The payload is interchangeable, but it facilitates the other two extremes of the really small attritable and the big Navy manned missions that we have to do. So there's this middle ground that I think that the disruptors panel can really explore.
Yes, sir. On that note, well spoken, sir.
Thanks.
We're going to be, with your permission, we'll be taking a break, and then we will be on Army Assault at 2:40 p.m. sharp.